everybody doing today? Welcome back here today to another episode of the JustBallin Podcast. We have finished up the round of 32 here in March Madness. So today we're going to maybe talk a little bit more about college basketball. It's obviously a huge 4-day stretch when you're getting 16 games on Thursday and Friday, 8 games on Saturday and Sunday. And now we know the Sweet 16 and that field. Unfortunately for you, Tucker, your Wolfpack are not in it.
Yeah, it's brutal. I mean, they shouldn't have won the game anyway. It's just always funny to think a team that made the Sweet 16, they obviously only won because they had a buzzer beater too. But State was also down like almost 10 late in the game. Texas kept turning the ball over. That's been, I feel like, a little bit of a theme in this tournament, whether it be for Texas or other teams. It's just like late game collapses that maybe you end up saving. St. John's is one that comes to mind against Kansas. Kansas in the first round almost blew a game to Cal Baptist. So I don't know what it is about. Like, we have all these changes to college basketball, but one thing we haven't been able to figure out is how to beat a press. Apparently, Iowa's the only team in the country that knows how to beat a press and not turn the ball over late. So that was tough. That was brutal. But congrats to Texas on the Sweet 16. I think State probably would have gotten smoked by Gonzaga anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah, I feel like every year we get like a team in the first four that ends up making a run. Mm-hmm. And it's just like you have some momentum. And I mean, Gonzaga, I always felt weird about them. Honestly, I thought if like Miami or Purdue, whoever ended up getting through that matchup was going to beat Gonzaga either way, and Gonzaga loses.
And let's not pretend like Texas is like a plucky program anyway. You know, they spend a bunch of money
Cinderella,
as well.
Man, 11 seed, low NIL budget. Were you mad? What was that? It was that game, right, where the assistant coach ran on the floor in excitement, and it's like they should have teed him up.
So on one hand, I was like, yeah, they should have teed him up. On the other, like, for that guy's safety, I think it's the right call to just like, let's just let that moment pass. He just got excited in the moment. Has nothing to do with anything on the floor. I was totally fine with it. There's actually been a few of those. Like, obviously, former NC State coach Herb Sendek trying to call a timeout for Santa Clara right before the half-court shot. Mm-hmm. And I think, I'm not sure what you think. There's obviously a larger conversation to be had about March Madness, what it means now. I think the tournament's been great this year. Certainly significantly better than last year.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it a ton. I mean, I guess last year...
I guess the opening weekend. Maybe it's not fair to grade the entire tournament because last year the second weekend was really good. But the opening weekend certainly better than this year.
Yeah, definitely. And we've gotten like some good upsets, right? Like you get High Point pulling off the upset. I mean, it was High Point, VCU, Texas. That might have been the only double digits that we ended up getting outside of the round of 32, but I thought they were round of 64, but I thought the games were fantastic. I mean, like Vanderbilt, Nebraska felt like an all-time classic, and if like Tower Tanner's able to knock down that shot, it literally was like halfway in.
Yeah.
That would have been talked about for decades after that. I think we've gotten some really good high-level games, like Iowa, Florida was really good. Mm-hmm. St. John's, Kansas, honestly, like maybe not high level, but it was a close, entertaining game. Tennessee, Virginia was good. I think we've had some really good games so far, and I've enjoyed March Madness a ton. I know the Sweet 16, it's a lot of powerhouse schools, and like we just joked about it, like Texas does not feel like an 11-seed Cinderella, but I don't know. We might end up getting 3 1 seeds in the Final Four. Obviously, Florida can't be in the Final Four, but I do enjoy being able to watch like big program versus big program. Yes, it's cool to have like your Florida Gulf Coast or your VCU back in the day or your Butler go on a run or even like the NC State Wolfpack from a couple of years ago. But I'm excited for the Sweet 16. I think we're about to get like some insane games this weekend too.
Yeah, and that was the thing that was great about last year is even though the opening weekend wasn't great, most of the games beyond that was, you know, these powerhouse schools playing against each other, and that made the rest of the tournament great. And we can talk later about, you know, how chalky some of the tournament is, NIL, all that stuff. But I think it's important to point out, like you said, that certainly if you're comparing it to last year, at least the games were compelling, most of them. I think 13 of the first 32 games in the tournament were 20-plus point blowouts, but the ones that were close were extremely compelling. I mean, Louisville almost blew a lead late to South Florida. That would have been a really fun 11 seed. I think South Florida actually could have made a decent run in the tournament and just got off to a terrible shooting start in that game and couldn't bring it back late. We mentioned the Cal Baptist one. There was like a 2-hour stretch where it looked like High Point might be the only North Carolina school to advance past the first round because Siena was up double digits in the second half. UNC blew a late lead. Obviously, NC State lost in the first 4, unless I'm blanking on another North Carolina school.
High Point Queens, was like North Carolina.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I think they're like Charlotte or something. Yeah, but like High Point, I think at that point had advanced, and Duke looked like they were going to potentially lose to Siena. And I think that's just, to me, that's the heart of the tournament. I love the entire tournament, but the opening weekend, got 4 games. I had 3 TVs in my living room, which is not, I normally have 1. I was just dragging TVs in the living room. I was watching on my phone. It's my favorite thing. And even though teams didn't actually pull it off, there was, for about 20 minutes, I thought Furman might beat UConn in the first round. I thought Wright State had a great chance against Virginia, ends up losing to Tennessee. We talked about Siena against Duke. So it isn't always about the outcome, but there was a scenario here where like we had maybe Cal Baptist and Siena and Furman and all these different Wright State make it to the second round. And just because they didn't, I don't think it's fair to just say, oh, the tournament's all chalky. And then we saw in kind of the round of 32 as well, that carryover where, a team like Iowa beating Florida, there's no 1, 2, 3, 4 in any of the regions. And even though every single Sweet 16 team is a major conference team for only the second time ever, the only other time was last year, even though that's the case, I still think it's been a very, very interesting tournament. And even though you can kind of have a lot of takes on that, which I think we'll get to later, I still don't think it takes away from the tournament itself. You don't need Florida Gulf Coast in the Sweet 16 to have a great tournament. I think it's been a really, really fun opening weekend.
Yeah, I totally agree. NIL is going to hurt Cinderella's, I think, in the grand scheme of things, because it's tough because you'll have a guy break out for a mid-major and they're just going to get poached the next year, or maybe they already got poached before they were going to get their breakout, and it would have been a breakout on this mid-major, but now it's a breakout on a major school. So it's going to affect it at the end of the day, and I do think the bracket isn't always chalky like that. It was 2023, the first UConn one, where it was like FAU, San Diego State. Was it Miami? I forget it was Miami. And you had UConn win as a 4 seed, even though I think a lot of people, like I was on UConn that year, I remember, and like everybody was ready for like Dan Hurley to take this team. I guess we have hit like this chalky stretch over the last few years. I mean, last year, I forget it, like if it was like the first time in like how long where they had all 1 seeds in the Final Four. And when you get to that point, it's like, okay. But I remember like the games being pretty good leading up to that point. And Houston and Duke was a classic. Auburn, Florida was really good too in the Final Four. And Florida, Houston was a classic as well. So at the end of the day,
UConn, Florida, I think was really good. I think in the round of 32, I think UConn, Florida was really good.
Yeah, UConn, Florida was a good game. And that's just like, can you count out Dan Early? Can they go for the three-peat? And Florida obviously was so good with their front court depth and what they had on the perimeter. So
I still can't believe they lost to Iowa. We can talk about that in a second. I still can't believe Florida lost to Iowa. But
I can't believe it either, honestly. And I mean, there was some just bad shot selection. At the end, you'd think like Xavier Weed's going to take that layup, or we should try something.
I'm so glad you said it. So we'll just talk about this game now. I have 2 things. I'll split them up so I don't talk for too long. First is the end of game sequence everyone's mad about, because Florida's pressing up to with 9 seconds left or something, and Iowa gets a wide open 3. I'm not that worried about the pressing part. I can understand the concept of trying to slow them up. Maybe all the way up the floor is a bad thing. 2 things. One, I haven't seen one person mention this. It might be the greatest inbounds pass I've ever seen that wasn't on the Christian Laettner shot. It was like perfectly in stride over the guy's shoulder, didn't get tipped out of bounds. Because there's a scenario there where the Florida guy tips it, goes off, and it starts his hand, and your season's over. And it was a perfectly inbounds pass. Second of all, Florida was trying to foul. When they were up 2, which has been a thing. I know Florida's coach has done this. It's a thing that he does where he wants to put pressure on them. He thinks worst case we get the ball with 7 seconds left.
He was being serious when he said that we were going to foul up 2. I thought he was just like, he didn't like, I don't know, it was a bad cop out, but he actually wanted to send them to the free throw line. It's something
he's done. I think he did it in the tournament last year. I can't remember the game, but his concept is up 2 with whatever it was, 9 seconds left. I can't remember if it was 1-1 or not, but obviously 1-1 makes it a little bit more realistic than just an automatic 2 shots. And he's thinking, okay, worst case, we have the ball with 7 seconds left, which is kind of a funny statement to make, given that they didn't get a shot on the rim when that was the scenario they ended up with. They were just down 1 rather than the game being tied. But I don't know. I have a problem with that thought process, because you're assuming nothing crazy happens on the rebound. You're assuming you get the rebound. If you're fouling at that point, it means you're in the bonus. So all it takes is one bad call where they call it over the back or something, and then all of a sudden they're shooting for the win. So that entire end of game sequence just bothered me. In addition to, you mentioned the shot selection. The kid for Florida, Howe or whatever, was killing them the entire second half driving to the rim. And the last possession, he took 3 step-back threes when they're up whatever they were, 2 or whatever. I didn't understand anything about what happened at the end of that game for Florida. Couldn't tell you anything about that made sense.
It's just like, I felt like they just handed that game to Iowa. And like, you think that Iowa, where it's just like, new head coach this year, and Ben McCollum always done his win. Before this, now he hasn't been at a school like Iowa.
He's like the Signetti of college basketball now. He just
basically, I forget, it's like Northern Missouri,
Northwestern something state, Missouri.
Yeah, before he was at Drake and did a great job at Drake last year. They beat, I think, Mizzou in the round of 64. Then they lose to Texas Tech in the round of 32 or something like that. And like Bennett went 0 of 9 from 3 in this game. He went 5 of 16 from the field.
Yeah, it wasn't good. He took some terrible threes.
Terrible shots. Like the one at the end too, where he like forced it. I don't know if he was looking for a foul, but he just didn't create any separation, which has kind of been his MO. He's not really a guy that's going to create a bunch of separation in the half court. And I mean, they get that. It was a 3 right at the end too. He hits the 3 in the corner. When they broke the press, or
it wasn't him. It was his pass.
No, it wasn't Stearns, and he found something because He's really good under pressure, and he doesn't really show much emotion, and he's very like calm and poised in that situation. And yeah, like Hal took some bad shots. I mean, some of Boogie Flan's shot selection wasn't great in this game, and like
Chinyelu was bad. Chinyelu, I don't think he scored. Like
no, yeah, he didn't score a single point. And like this team is supposed to dominate you with Condon, Hal, Chinyelu, and just like the size that they have, and then you have two solid ball handlers and William Flan in the backcourt, supposed to like calm everything down and make everything go right for this offense. And it's really shocking. Now, Florida was playing some really good basketball leading up to the SEC tournament. They lost to Vandy in the semifinal, but I still thought this was the fourth best team. I thought they deserved the 1 seed, especially after UConn lost in the Big East championship game. It was really shocking to see them lose to a team like Iowa. And this was like, I mean, the 1 seeds were really good this year, and I guess they were technically the worst 1 seeds. So therefore, you could say that they should have been like on maybe upset watch in the 1-9 matchup. But honestly, when you're looking at like, I think St. Louis is a better 9 seed, and they lost by 23 to Michigan. I think Utah State's a better 9 seed.
Certainly.
So it was definitely a disappointing loss. And it just goes to show you how crazy the tournament is, because I think Todd Golden has never made it out of the Sweet 16 or to the Sweet 16 in his like 5 or so years at Florida, outside of last year when they ended up winning it all. So it's like very boomer bust.
I was thinking about that as well, because like although Florida won it last year, they had some like Walter Clayton saved them in like 3 of the 6 games they won. They had some crazy end of game stuff, and obviously they don't have him anymore. I'm going to screw up some of the specifics, but there was a point in the second half where I think Florida was down like 4 or 6 or something. They were coming back, and I think Iowa's bigs got called for like 4 fouls in a span of 2 minutes. And I thought the game was over. I was like, both their bigs, one, they're already at a disadvantage there too. Everybody has 4 fouls. There's like 7 minutes left in the game. Florida's going to win by like 15. That's honestly what I thought. And they just, for whatever reason, every time they would drive to the rim, they would score. And then every other possession, they would decide to shoot like a 32-footer for absolutely no reason. And then, like you said, Bennett Sturts was trying to have like his one shining moment, like 6 possessions in a row. Now, I can't be too mad at him, because their entire offense is let's run around a little bit until we get to 12 seconds, and then we're going to try and create something. Like them playing Clemson, there should have been like a parental advisory on them playing Clemson.
They play so slow.
It's like, can we have like a 10-second shot clock rule just for these teams specifically? Because this is atrocious. Which is funny, because Clemson's always good. Brownell's always been a good coach. Like getting them to the tournament and then them like outperforming their kind of talent level, which is probably going to be the theme for Iowa as well. But yeah, it's just atrocious trying to watch those two teams. But anyway, I mean, that certainly would be our biggest upset kind of leading into the Sweet 16, and saves us from the 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of dreaded, why did we even need to have the first couple of games seeding in that region specifically? So.
Yeah, who was your pre-March Madness team to win it all?
I have to look at my bracket. I'm almost positive I had Duke. I'm a 1 bracket person, by the way. I don't know what your bracket ethics are. I pick a bracket, and then I put it in ESPN and call it a day. The only time I do 2 is if NC State advances to like the actual tournament. This year, obviously, then first 4 and lost, and I'll do one where they're in like the Final 4 or something, and maybe change it around a little bit. But I'm a 1 bracket person, and I don't write it down. I don't know if you're a paper person. I don't know what your bracket ethics are. I don't know what you do.
No, I don't write it down anymore. I used to, definitely back in like high school. I would say I'm like a 3 bracket guy, but I would say like 2 of them are very close to each other. So I make like my initial bracket, and I'll take some upsets here and there. Like I think I had Miami in the Elite 8, and like I'll take some swings. It's maybe my most embarrassing trait about myself, but I have 1 bracket that I'm in like a decently sized pool. I go chalk. I take most of the time. I'm taking every favorite to win every
plus
game. Plus
EV bracket.
Basically, because I remember like doing this league all throughout high school, and I'm like, I think I got like lucky one year, and it's like you're getting lucky with your upsets. I'm like, I'm never hitting on any of these. I'm predicting an 11 seed to go to the Final 4, and then it messes up my whole bracket. And I said 1 year, I think it was like my freshman year of college, I was like, you know what? Like I'm gonna be kind of lame. It's so lame. And I took like all 1 seeds, or I took a lot of favorites, and I ended up like winning the bracket that year. And I said, okay, from now on, like this group is my designated chalk group. Like last year, took all 1 seeds, had Florida winning it all. And it's lame. It's boring, but like, especially nowadays, it's so tough to predict some of these upsets. And then like, you don't want like your bracket to have like 20% when you know what, you can like have some money on the line. So, I mean, in a perfect world, yeah, you're getting all these upsets right. You're picking every 11 seed, you're picking a 14 seed, and it actually comes to fruition. But it's just so hard to predict these. Even like the experts don't know, and it's so
like
tough.
I was trying to have some fun with it. Like I genuinely, I spent 4 total minutes making my bracket, and like I had Troy beating Nebraska. I was like, oh, Nebraska's never won a tournament game. Like maybe they'll choke because they're like nervous or whatever. They lose or they win by 29. I had Penn beating Illinois. I gave up 105 points because they have like baby Jokic or whatever the kid's name, Milicic or whatever, was just cooking in both games. Just out of control how good he was in both games. So like you try to have some fun with it, and obviously like you watch Siena and you're like, oh, I should have picked Siena. There's always a 16 seed that gives
But then
someone
I'm
a
like
scare.
rooting for it. I'm rooting for chaos. Like if Siena beat Duke, like
so
that'd
that's
be
my
electric.
other thing, and that's how I feel about like fantasy football. There's people that have like 10 plus leagues. My max is 3 because I want to watch the game and know what I'm rooting for. I don't want to watch the game and be like, I need this receiver, but I'm playing against that receiver in this other league. It's too much. Same thing with the bracket.
Worst.
I want to root for my bracket or an upset. I don't want to root for 17 outcomes because that's not fun.
No, I totally agree with you. I'm in like 6 fantasy football leagues and I hate it. I just like there was a point where I couldn't say no to joining them because I loved it so much. And now I wish I can like only do one because it's the same thing. Now it's like every Sunday I'm like, I don't even want to think about anybody doing well in fantasy. I'll check all my leagues later and see if I ended up winning or not.
Yeah, I have I have a dynasty one. I have one that I'm in every year and have been for years. And then normally there's like a floater that's like, oh, I fell out of this one. Hey, we need one over here. But 3 is my max. Like I have a buddy that has like a portfolio of fantasy football leagues because he's actually really good at it, tries to make money off of it. And I'm like, dude, that like ruins the entire fantasy football experience because you're just rooting for points, but the right points because you're playing against all these guys in the leagues. Anyway, so those are my bracket ethics anyway.
No, I agree. And I think it was maybe, what was it? Maybe it was the Final Four year of like FAU and UConn or something. Or maybe the year before that, but my fiance, like then girlfriend, just vibe picked it, right? Like it did in like 2 seconds, like, oh, like I know this school from this or this school from this. And it's like, I actually put like so much effort in making my bracket and she like destroyed me in like the group pool we were in. I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm done like putting so much effort into this just to get destroyed. So I'm just going off what like I knew throughout the college basketball season. Right. I'm giving my vibe picks when the bracket comes out and you can't, cause you'll look at like a matchup so much. What was there was one matchup this year where, I think it might have been VCU North Carolina because
that was the big upset for everyone. Everybody
had it, and like same with you. And like when the bracket came out, I'm like, I love VCU, I love USF, and I'm like, now I'm starting to learn everybody else loves those schools too. And I'm like, okay, something's off. Like this is just not going to happen. Not everybody's going to be right about a 6-11 upset. And I ended up changing it to North Carolina because I'm like, maybe it was a bias thing because I like North Carolina growing up, but I'm like, you know what? Everybody's on VCU. UNC's not the worst team in the world without Caleb Wilson.
And it's the other big playing is a big deal because he missed some games late in the year too. I forget his name, Vasar.
Oh, Henry Vasar, yeah.
Him playing is a big deal because late in the year they weren't amazing, and everybody's like, oh, it's because Caleb Wilson's out. Well, he also missed a bunch of games. When he plays, that obviously makes a difference, and we saw that for 33 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and then it's just like, okay, this guy cannot handle the ball or this much of a workload and usage in the clutch, and he has to play like 42 minutes in this game.
But that's also what VCU does. NC State played VCU in the beginning of the year, and they almost did the exact same thing where State was up like most of the game, and then they ended up coming back. There was a point where they were down a bunch to Illinois in the beginning of the game and actually made it close and ended up losing by 21. But that's just kind of what they do. But yeah, it's also funny, like, because I felt the same way. I was like, I like South Florida, I like VCU, and both those games really could have obviously gone either way. So it's always funny when you get to the end and it's like, maybe you have a buddy that's like, I knew Kentucky was going to beat Santa Clara. That matchup never made any sense. Like, really? You knew that the guy was going to make a 45-footer at the buzzer to go to overtime? You knew that? Cool. Sounds good.
I think it was Kentucky. It was Arkansas, Kansas last year, I think. And Kansas is so different from Santa Clara, but I'm like, you know what? Arkansas was so disappointing last year in like Cal's first like regular season. It's like DJ Wagner and like some of these guys, and they ended up winning like 2 straight series. I think they beat St. John's. And that was my thing with Kentucky this year. I'm like, Kentucky was so disappointing this year. They were not a good basketball team. They were so underwhelming compared to their NIL. And then I'm like, you know what? If we could just get like one Otega Owe game who was like a Naismith like preseason pick like going into the year, we can make it out of it. And then he like banked. I think he was the one that banked that shot. Or was it Otega Owe?
It was him.
It was, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, like should have called the timeout. He had up 35, and then they get destroyed by banked up Iowa State. And it's like, all right. You made it to the round at 32.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up. Yeah, that's the other funny thing that happens is everybody like divides your NIL budget by like how many NCAA tournament games you won. Like High Point and Kentucky won the same amount of NCAA tournament games compared to the investment level. But the Kentucky thing's interesting. One, because we can talk about the timeout thing in a minute, which does kind of bother me. But also I thought that they actually, obviously in the beginning of the game, they had a really good chance against Iowa State. And I think Owe got hurt in 2 different ways in the first half and then just couldn't figure it out. Like he hurt his hand at one point or his shoulder. And then I think he like banged knees with somebody. I just don't think he was that healthy towards the end of the game. And obviously like just Aberdeen's not going to be able to carry him the rest of the way. But I also thought it was wild, the Santa Clara game where I've gotten some mixed results on this. I have watched the video like 100 times. I definitely think they called timeout before they touched the ball, and they should have got like Herb Sendek's call. Now, Granted, he ran to the wrong ref. He ran to the
he's got to
midcourt
go
ref,
to the one
running the opposite way when the crowd's going crazy. Can't hear him. He also definitely hesitated. I don't think he thought the shot was going to go in, and he didn't think about, I need to call a timeout. But there's been a couple of certainly officiating blunders. There's that one. There was, what game was it yesterday that there was it was the Purdue game. There was a controversial out of bounds and the ball never went out of bounds. They reviewed it a bunch and they said it was one team's ball and it was just never out of bounds.
I know. Go back.
Granted, they need 150 officials to do this tournament. They're going to run out of pretty good ones after a while.
I don't know why that is in college that you can call a timeout after you make a basket.
Yeah.
Where it's I guess that is nice because then I also wouldn't mind advancing a ball after a timeout, but I know people are against that as well because I think that'd be nice. Just to set up.
Obviously, it's a thing in college. It's also a thing in. I think it's a little bit of a carryover from high school because obviously, at least in my experience in high school, the clock operator is some random kid that was in gym class that day and needs to run the clock, and so. If let's say you're down 5 with 25 seconds left and you hit a 3 in high school, you call a timeout so the clock stops so that kid's not running 5 seconds off and the clock keeps running after a made basket anyway, but you stop, whistle blows, okay, now we're going to reset. And I think that's a little bit of a carryover into college. Maybe it shouldn't be a rule, but honestly, I learn about a new rule in college basketball every single year. Did you see the 20-second shot clock thing that happened in the is it Louisville, Michigan State, with the ball? Was
that the start of the game?
Yeah, the ball went into the front court off the tip,
yeah.
And so if you start a possession in the front court, there 20 seconds on the clock. And I saw a TikTok of Gene Steratore explaining it, and I was like, I've probably watched. I don't even know how many minutes because he said it was a rule they added 5 years ago. I was like, I've watched who knows how many minutes of college basketball, and I had no idea this was a rule. I also don't understand why it needs to be a rule. If you're getting the ball in the front court, why does it matter? I know you get 10 seconds to advance the ball, so maybe that's why it's who stood up in 2021 was like, hey guys, I've got a great idea for a new rule that's an absolute necessity.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't know about that either. And then that happened at the beginning of the game, and it's I wonder how many times this has actually happened in the last 5 years. Maybe it's happened more in regular season and we just don't catch it. So I don't know. Yeah, there's definitely some different rules in college. And it was the St. John's Kansas. Oh man, all the games are blending to me. But it was the St. John's Kansas game, I think, where they had so many fouls to give.
Oh my gosh.
They fouled him 9 different times. I'm can we just throw them in the bonus after the first one? Why are we doing this?
I'm so glad you brought this up.
And they took forever to or no, they did it too quickly. And it's why are you doing it so quickly? Wait more time to do it.
There's 2 issues I have with that. One, I agree from a TV perspective. There should be some kind of function where, okay, there's 15 seconds left. You're 4 fouls away from the bonus. We're going to say it takes 2 seconds to foul, and then they're going to be in the bonus, so we don't have to actually do it. Same thing as there's a blowout, you call timeout, but you don't actually take the timeout. You just bring the subs in so that the 15th guy on the team can jack up threes for 2 minutes. We have that in place. Why can't we do that for the bonus, where some amount of time comes off, but now they're in the bonus? Also, granted, I don't think this is Bill Self's fault. I think the kid just screwed it up. In that scenario, you want to foul -1 of the bonus so that if you are guarding and accidentally bump into somebody, they're not getting free throws to potentially win the game. So they fouled.
Which you could have did at the end there.
They got to 5, and then with 5 seconds left, and then they fouled again to get to 6. So now I think that was part of the reason they gave up such an easy layup is because they're well, shit, if we foul them, they're going to get game-winning free throws. So I don't think Bill Self told them to get to 6 fouls. I think he knows that, but it's just funny how that scenario unfolds. But that's what's fun at times about college basketball is we know the product isn't as good in terms of the actual play, but it's just some of the mania that happens is just so much fun.
Yeah. So I guess looking at the Sweet 16, is there so the biggest spreads right now, it's Purdue 6.5, Arizona 7.5 against Arkansas, and everybody's talking about Darius Cuff going into the draft. You have Michigan at 9.5, Duke at 6.5. Is there any an upset you feel semi good about this upcoming weekend?
So I've also heard some buzz where people are talking about Cuff going on a run. I just think that Arizona team is so good. If you look at some of their performances this year against teams that shoot well against them and they still win by 15, that team is crazy. And obviously the big kid played really well in their last game. I'm looking a little bit, I don't know, it's hard. I'm looking a little bit at Michigan Bama because Bama was so good in their 2 games, but also Texas Tech is obviously not what they once were. And Akron was kind of in that game for a little bit. Michigan, again, just a gigantic team. Honestly, I don't it's other than the games you just listed. I think my most anticipated game might be Nebraska or Iowa, because it's just weird to go into one of those matchups and think like, okay, one of these teams will be in the Elite Eight. Like that's going to happen no matter what the outcome is. And that would just be so bizarre. And correct me if I'm wrong, that I don't know if it's that region entirely, or like Houston's playing home games until the Final Four, right? Basically, aren't they playing?
Yeah, because the next two games are I'm pretty sure they're both at Houston.
Yeah,
like the Sweet 16 Elite Eight is the same.
Them not having to deal with Florida, like I'd imagine they're pretty heavily favored to get to the Final Four now because of kind of the proximity of it. But I don't know, that Illinois team looked really good. I felt like I don't think Illinois missed a shot in two games. That's how I feel. I feel like they just, and I know they're the best offense in the country. I get it, but I couldn't believe how good their front court was.
Yeah, like they looked unreal against like VCU and Penn. They scored 105 against Penn was ridiculous, and then 76 against VCU. I mean, yeah, I didn't honestly think about that. Yeah, Houston really does get 2 home games. Now, whoever wins Iowa, Nebraska will travel. Like, they're obviously going to stay there for the weekend, I'm sure, if they win.
The Nebraska stuff is crazy. They're in Oklahoma City, and it sounds like a home game. It was absurd.
No, it was insane. I mean, like, they've never won a tournament game, and now they've won 2. On the verge of 3 as a favorite here in the Elite Eight. I mean, they're a fun team to watch. Like, they just knock down threes. They move so well without the ball in their hands. And I think they match up, like, it's such an interesting matchup against Iowa, because I do think these two teams match up pretty well. I forget the season split, because I think they played each other twice throughout the Big Ten season. It's going to be, like, that might be game of the weekend when it has, like, the least, like, blue blood appeal to it in college basketball, the least, like, draft prospect appeal to it in all these games this weekend. And it might be the best game in terms of, like, an entertainment factor. Like, I can't wait for Iowa, Nebraska, and I would never have uttered those words, like, ever in my life before 3 months ago.
I can't, because having, like, I know you said, like, you were a UNC fan growing up and now Temple, like, having had a team that wasn't supposed to do anything actually get to the Final Four and everything, it's just crazy to watch another fan base go through some of these crazy games. Because I talked about it before, but like when NC State made the Final Four, like they should have lost to Oakland. That was the game that they almost blew, and they had a crazy run in the ACC tournament, blah, blah, blah. Nebraska, with 90 seconds to go, comes out of the timeout against Vandy, and it's like miss, put back, Vandy scores, miss, put back, stop. Then it was like another layup, and then a half-court shot goes in and out. Like, you come out of a timeout with 90 seconds left, NCAA tournament life on the line, and that's what happened. It just, I can't imagine the ups and downs of that. And I don't know why all of a sudden half-court shots and full-court shots in some cases have become such a thing in this tournament, even though all the balls are overinflated, which we can have that conversation a different day. But we've had 3 different half-court or full-court heaves directly decide basketball games. It's crazy.
What's the third one that I'm missing?
It's Santa Clara, Kentucky. Am I blanking? It's Nebraska and Vandy. I thought there was another one. Maybe I'm stupid.
I'm trying to remember too.
I'm blanking. Sorry. Maybe it's
just like you're watching so many games, and it's just like they're all blending together. Like, I have notes down for all of them, but then it's just like gibberish at this point.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember to go back to any of these. We've had so many like fake comebacks too. Like, I thought South Florida was going to come back against Louisville. You hit on them earlier. UCF made a run against UCLA.
Yep. And that's the other thing too, is we're both East Coast people. So like, it's midnight and a team's making a run and you're like, huh, what's happening? This is the 4th straight day I've stayed up till 1 a.m. watching basketball. Dude, and some of these games are on the East Coast. Bama played till 1 a.m.
It's ridiculous. I was at so I went to the games in
Philly, right? Yeah, they had games in Philly.
In the 64 and 32. The first game didn't start till like 2:30 on Friday, the Virginia game. The UConn Furman game didn't tip off till like 10:30 on the East Coast. I was like, what the hell is this? It didn't end till like midnight or 1 a.m. or close to 1 a.m. It was actually a pretty good game. I left at the start of that one though. I was like, I had like prior obligations, and I was like, my brain is just like almost basketballed out right now. Like that's
if NC State was like in that bracket, I probably would have gone to the games in Tampa, and that was obviously Florida, Iowa, and a couple of other ones. So it's nice when they have something relatively close, because I've never been to an NCAA tournament game, but like the Kia Center is close by. They've done games there before. Like I think they did. Tampa was like either, I get them confused, UCF or USF's campus. But regardless, I keep saying, I still think the tournament has been super compelling, even though excuse me, our only double-digit seed is a major program in 11th seed Texas, and then obviously Iowa as a 9 seed. But like I said, I think it was super possible that a team like High Point made the Sweet 16. They looked very, very good. And I think as we get into kind of some more bigger picture conversations about what the tournament looks like now, because this year and last year have been a little bit chalkier, I think it seemed like High Point is maybe going to be what Cinderella's potentially look like now, other than Texas, who just underperforms during the year and then has a good run because they're talented. High Point might be, and Utah State, I think, is an example, might be an example of like what small, mid-major, whatever you want to call them, programs making a run in the NCAA tournament looks like. Where, I mean, Utah State probably should have been seated higher, but High Point is like an extremely affluent program. Like they're very well set up financially to be able to
chartering planes to fly the fans.
Yeah, like there might be a barrier for entry to be able to realistically go on a run in March. Now that might be a little bit disrespectful to like all these other schools like Siena and Wright State that actually did have a chance to win their games, but to actually go on a run, you're going to have to spend, and you're going to have to be like the best of the best mid-major programs like a Utah State, like I think High Point's going to be, depending on what happens with their coach. Like I don't think the Cinderella story stuff necessarily is gone, but I think it's just going to look different. I don't think given transfers, given all these different things, you can just assume every year there's going to be a 14 or a 15 seed that goes on a run, and it's probably going to look more like, you know, the best of the best mid-major programs are still going to be here.
Yeah. And I mean, like, we were just so close to like Siena. I really thought that, I don't know. I wasn't like believing it until I think it was like the double dunk that they missed was the turning point of the game where it's like,
and the kid, was that when the kid sprained his ankle, or was that a different play? There was a double dunk miss, and then Duke scored, and then there was something that happened where I think it was on an inbounds.
Kind of like fell, in transition. Yeah, I don't know if it was like, I think they were pretty close to each other, those two plays. And it's crazy that 5 guys played 40 minutes for Siena and they lost by 6.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that was the best I've ever seen somebody guard Cameron Boozer. I mean, he still got his 14 free throws, but he went 4 of 11 from the field. He went, he go like 3 of 6 from 2?
And that's why I still have a lot of hope. Like, one, I think the tournament's been good. 2, if you're someone that's like, man, I really want, some of these mid-majors in the Sweet 16, I still think it's going to happen. Like, I don't think that the tournament is just like irrevocably changed in a way that doesn't allow for it. I just think it's going to be less for all the reasons that are very obvious. And again, I think it might look like a team like High Point that seems mid-majory, seems small school, and in reality, they're spending a crap ton of money on their athletic department in order to try and make these kinds of things happen. So, I don't know.
Yeah, so are you still on Duke to win it all?
Yeah, certainly not that excited about it, but...
You can, like, retroactively change your bracket. Like, right now, I can give you an out. Would you take it, or would you still ride Duke?
If you gave me an out... And honestly, like, when I'm thinking about this, I'm not even really thinking about, like, their path necessarily. Like, I think if you want to think a lot about the path, like, maybe you would think about Houston or something like that. I think if you just let me pick a team, I would probably pick Arizona now instead of Duke, because I think... whether it be lack of availability or them not playing as well, like the injury stuff has certainly hurt Duke a lot, which we knew going into the tournament. But as well as Caden Boozer has played, I'm getting nervous about, freshman point guard trying to lead you to a national title. So I would say if you let me redo it, I would take Arizona. Having said that, they'll probably lose now on Thursday or Friday whenever they play.
I know. It's just like, it's tough because you're looking at all your groups and everybody either has like Duke, Michigan, or Arizona. I was on Arizona going into this, and like 30% of the group has Arizona, so it's tough. So you're really trying to like win your points elsewhere. I wanted to take Houston because I was Houston and Texas Tech preseason, and Texas Tech actually had some pretty good value until JT Toppin tore his ACL. But Houston, I mean, I want to believe in them so much, and like I had no idea Kingston Fleming's, like, honestly, I didn't really know much about him at all going into the year, and I thought this was going to be like a Miles Uzan, Emmanuel Sharp show throughout the whole year offensively. And if you would have told me like, no, Houston's going to have this kid that's going to go in the top 6 or 7, and he's going to be one of the best freshman scoring guards in the country and one of the best freshman defensive guards in the country, I'm like, shit, like they're going to be a top 4 team. And I think well, now Houston with their path, and like we talked about, like them having like back-to-back technically home environments close to it over the next 2 games, I think they match up well against Duke. I do. And they beat Duke last year in the Final Four. We could get a rematch. And like they're just battle-tested from the Big 12 this year. I think we might actually get an Arizona... Oh, man, Arizona, Michigan, if we get that in the Final Four, is going to be insane. Because that's what the Final Four would be, right?
Yeah, I'm looking at the bracket now. I was just going to say, if you account for theoretical strength of the path they'd have to go through, obviously Duke is in a relatively tough spot, depending on what you think about St. John's, and then either Michigan State or UConn. I don't think Michigan State is like great, but it just would be a tough game because it always is. And then obviously UConn's pretty good. obviously Houston has to beat Illinois first, but if they're able to do that home game against either Iowa or Nebraska to get to the Final Four, and then whoever comes out of the Duke, St. John's, UConn, Michigan State group is going to be beat up by the time they get there. So it might be one of those situations where we get Arizona, Michigan on one side of the bracket. And it's like, I know this isn't actually for the national title, but it might kind of feel like it if on the other side is, a Houston team that had been playing at home, and then maybe, like a UConn or a Michigan State on the other side. But regardless, I think that's the cool thing about, having maybe a little bit of a chalkier bracket is, like I said, last year, even though the opening weekend wasn't great, a lot of the games afterwards were because you actually have some of the best teams, whereas in the past, maybe a team like VCU ends up making the Sweet 16, and then the performance we just saw for them against Illinois, that happens in the Sweet 16, and it's a little bit of a letdown once some of those teams get there. But I don't know, are you like worried at all about because I said this the other day, it's my favorite thing. You could take the entire NFL season if it means I get to keep March Madness. You could take the entire NBA season if it means I get to keep March Madness. It's my favorite thing every year, and I think although some of that concern has been lessened because we got like Iowa, and it hasn't been as chalky as last year. Given the directly correlating timeline of like players getting paid, chalkier tournament, are you worried at all about the tournament?
I'm not, but I think I'm also a bad person to ask because I'm not a college like basketball junkie, and I feel like that's the appreciation of March Madness is the chaos, and I still think we'll always get chaos in some way, shape, or form since it's a one and done. I mean, I don't know if like I'm the right guy to ask too, because like I never have like a dog in the fight, and maybe if Temple was there always as like an 11 seed or 12 seed, I'd be like, yeah, I want us to have a better chance rather than getting smoked by 40. I do wonder. I mean, like I don't think we can make any like full assessments yet that like the Cinderella is dead, because we might just be getting a 2-year blip in like a 20-year sample size where these are the only 2 years where we don't get like a small major school or a small school going to the Sweet 16. Like maybe I think if you give me like this exact result 2 more years, I would say yes. But I think there was an era, it was like 06, 07 or 05, 06, where it was back-to-back years where we didn't get any double-digit seeds in the Sweet 16 or small schools in the Sweet 16. And maybe we're just hitting that era here. Because it wasn't, I think NIL was a thing in 24. Forget if it was,
but
a thing
it wasn't.
In 23.
It wasn't the same. It wasn't like
now it's just like ridiculous. Like where you're now watching guys on their 4th school in 4 years, which there's got to be a limit on that. I would hope that they eventually implement. Obviously, you want these kids to get paid, and they should. But it's just like 4 schools in 4 years is really tough, and it's like, and I think there's a whole like behind the scenes thing that affects like the I don't know, the brotherhood behind it and the loyalty and how it kind of grows up with like the same guys every year, and you build like actually teammate connections, and you just have like 12 different teammates every year. It's hard to maybe have like that chemistry and connection that you're going to eventually have at the NBA level. So or after that, I don't know. I wonder if in the next 2 years we'll get any changes to like NIL or the transfer portal or something like that.
Yeah, it's tough because I have a hard time believing that anything other than whatever makes the most amount of money is what's going to happen. We talked the other day about, turning the first 4 into like the
if they expand
super 16 or whatever, and now we have 76 teams, whatever alliteration term you want to put there. I hope that doesn't happen. But I think it's a hard conversation to have, because if theoretically 10 years from now we look back and say, 2023, 2024 range, that was the last time we had like real quote unquote March Madness, where we still have upsets, but it's just not quite the same. And that directly lines up with NIL and all these changes in college basketball. I think it's okay to say that that's ultimately not a bad thing, because you're trading that for like the players not being exploited financially anymore. So like that's probably a win overall. And also, there are a lot of ways in which NIL has made college basketball a better product. There are guys staying in school that would normally go to the NBA and get picked 35th overall. There are guys from overseas that would normally never see college and are playing. And I think overall the games are better, the product is better. And if that ultimately means that all of the top 4 seeds in every region have a 25% better chance of advancing every year, even though that might not be what everybody wants, and I certainly want a lot of madness in my March Madness, I don't know that we could necessarily I don't think it's fair to just categorize that as an altogether bad thing. I will say, if we could somehow figure out a way to put in a rule that is like you maximum can transfer once or twice, with obvious caveats of like if the coach leaves or whatever, because all these a bunch of these coaches are obviously going to leave. I know the Siena coach is going to Syracuse. Like those kids should be able to leave. It doesn't matter how many times you transferred. But I agree. It's so difficult because the structure doesn't make any sense, because like a regular student if they went to enroll at whatever, they can dip whenever they want to. You can't make them stay enrolled. How do you make a college student, even though they're getting paid, stay enrolled at a pro? I don't really know how you would go about doing that, but it needs to happen. We can't have 1 year free agency every year. I don't know if you saw the graphic of like all the Sweet 16 starting fives where they started their college career, and you can't even
it's probably,
you can't even pick out like what's
only
what.
Purdue is maybe the one that you can maybe tell.
Well, it's like Michigan State is everybody. Purdue has 4 of the 5. Duke 4 of the 5. Like there are some teams. Michigan, you can't even pick them out of the lineup. You have no idea who Michigan is.
You see a UAB logo, UCLA logo.
Yeah, it's like the UAB is like the giveaway. Iowa, ironically, you can tell because of the Drake guys. But no, I think. Yeah, it's a more nuanced conversation than just NIL ruined March Madness. And even if it did, I don't know that that's altogether like this wholly bad thing.
Yeah, no, totally. I think it's got to be like that second transfer. You either have to wait out a year or you're just not allowed to do it. Just because I think you should be allowed one. And then if the coach leaves, yes, that could be like you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to redshirt and like all that stuff. But yeah, the being able to transfer 3 times in 3 years. Like we're watching Andrei Stoyankovich on like Illinois. He was where was he first? He was Cal, Stanford, Stanford, Cal, Illinois, 3 schools in 3 years. What's stopping like, I don't know, Duke from giving him, or some school giving him $6 million to leave Illinois if Illinois is like, I only want to give you $2 million or something like that. And now it's his 4th school in 4 years. And it's just like, what is the point? I mean, like, I don't know. Like maybe it's just complaining just to complain, but maybe it's a nostalgia thing for us that like this has changed so much. And it's like you're watching these guys play at Virginia for 4 years or UNC for 4 years, and they're always going to be there. And you had to sit out a year, which maybe now sounds crazy that you had to do that, like sit out a year of college just to transfer. But maybe if you're going to do that, if you're going to transfer a second or third time, you should have to sit out a year.
Yeah, I mean, if we just
because also like kids are like 26 anyway in college. What's stopping them from sitting out a year? Like who cares at this point? Virginia has a freshman at 24 years old, Ritter, and he's like one of the best guys in the ACC.
Yeah, I think like if we just had like a committee sit down and agree on a bunch of rules, I think there's a bunch of common sense stuff that would get put into place if you could find a way to make it work within the structure. But obviously making it work within like a college structure is difficult. But I also just think, I don't know, it's hard. Like, could you put in a rule where you can transfer up, once or twice or whatever, once, or maybe you can only transfer up once, but if you want to transfer down, that's fine. Like if you want to go from Syracuse and you're the 7th guy on the team and you're not really playing, and like I'm thinking about Whittier Copeland, like McNeese State is like, hey dude, you can come start for us. Like I don't see any issue with that. The difference now is when kids at smaller schools, like when Butler was going on their run and it's like Gordon Hayward's good and Shelvin Mack and all those guys were good, Ronald Norad, I think I'm remembering correctly. If those guys are really good, the only reason they would transfer up is just because they want to be on a better team. But the risk of being on a better team is you might not play as many minutes. You might hurt your draft stock. So there was a little bit of pull to staying at the smaller school, to building something there and trying to go on a tournament run because you knew what your role was there. All those things are still the case now, but you're going to make like twice as much money. So even if your role isn't the same, this might be your only chance to make money playing basketball in your life. And so you might as well go and take advantage of that. Yeah. And so all of the advantages of staying at a smaller school are still there. They just get overruled by making more money. And I have no issue with it. It's also hilarious, by the way. I wish I could go back 15 years and have a conversation, knowing what we know now, have a conversation with someone that was like, you know what? I like players at Duke. I passionately think that they don't deserve to be paid any more than tuition, room and board. And that's a ton of value. And they get to they shouldn't be paid at all. Oh, really? Because every high major basketball player is making like $1 million minimum. I think the market has shown us that like all of these guys are worth a lot of money, and the concept that they ever were being compensated fairly was completely ludicrous.
Right. Because like, I mean, I'm trying to think of
that's an unfair
right
statement. Not everybody's making $1 million. This is an unfair statement, but regardless, they're all worth. Certainly, at every point in which modern college basketball has been a thing, and March Madness has been this gigantic corporate event, they have been undercompensated the entire history pre-INL.
Totally. I mean, I will say, like, kind of a little bit of change of topic here. I have enjoyed that, especially for somebody that loves the draft so much in the process and the prospects. We're seeing like 90% of the guys here in March Madness. And that's like one of the benefits, I guess, of being able to watch most of these big schools still be alive in March Madness, where you have, I mean, how many different lottery picks are still alive? Where you have Boozer, Flemings, Wagler, Nate Ament, Darius Cuff, LeBaron Filon, Braylon Mullins, Patrick Youngblood, Axel Lenneberg. That's like 12 out of the consensus, or 11 out of the 14 Monterey picks on a consensus big board that are still there, and plenty of other first round picks. So I have enjoyed that aspect of it, because my first year, like really going into like draft content, was 24. Like I would do like stuff for 21, 2, 3, but I really got into it in 24, and it's like, dude, like I was watching so much like NBL and like Cholet and Chijon Salon, and it's like I mean, it's just because it's so hard to it's not accessible. It's in a different language. It's kind of a crappy YouTube video at times. It's like nice to actually watch these guys on CBS.
Even like the G League Ignite stuff would just be brutal to try and like sort through, like what kind of basketball is this? I don't understand what I'm looking at. None of the numbers make any sense. It does standardize everything in a really nice way. Yeah,
the Ignite was like also just so weird, and you're watching like guys that I remember them from like college, or they're on you're watching G League guys basically. Honestly, I liked watching any European, any South American basketball over having to watch the Overtime Elite. I like watching the Thompson twins, and I'm watching like these different rules that are just implemented into the Overtime Elite League. I'm like, my head is going to explode, and I never want to watch anything like this again, because Overtime Elite is just like its own different sport. And you just don't have to worry about like, I don't know why, but the guy that always pops in my head for this is Mario Hezonja. You don't have to worry about evaluating a guy playing 17 minutes a game in like the Euro League. It's like, okay, if you're that good and you come to college, obviously you're gonna be playing like at least 25 minutes a game, unless you're getting into foul trouble. So it's like you have a standardized view of what it looks like to be good at basketball. Whereas there was a lot of projection with a lot of the international guys, because it's like, okay, we know what that league is. We know it's really good. These guys are trying to keep their job. We know why you're not playing as much. And then you get to the NBA, and it's like, oh, now we really understand why you're not playing as much, because maybe you weren't actually ready the way that we thought you were. There's much less projection when you're actually playing. Like Hugo Gonzalez barely played at Real Madrid, and I was just like, I don't know, man. Like, you couldn't make the Real Madrid. Like, it's so different over there. And if you're not good, you're not playing. And it's like they don't really care about development at all. And clearly Brad Stevens saw it, because I don't know, you watch these guys, and now they're just going from the EuroLeague to college basketball. Like Dame Sarr did. He went from Barcelona to Duke. Have you – I haven't checked in on your draft content in a while. Have you made any adjustments with any Darren Peterson stuff? I know you were Peterson one for a while, and then obviously AJ Devanza, although we can have a conversation about his game against Texas, because I think there were some good things and maybe some not so good things, but Peterson was okay, certainly in the first game. So I don't know if you've changed your stance at all, because I think I'm just telling you from my anecdotal personal experience, the Acuff over Peterson hive, that wave is coming. I'm telling you, like that is definitely out there. Yeah, I mean, Darius Acuff is better in college basketball than Darren Peterson, but I'm not taking Acuff ever over Darren Peterson. I don't know what I'd have to do. I mean, it would be more so on Peterson than I think Acuff to change my mind there. I'm still Peterson one. I was so tantalized by the high school tape going into this year, and I enjoyed watching him so much. And I think, I don't know, like BYU's calling, it's being like renamed Pro U. Duke has turned out number one pick Duke freshman, number one Duke freshman over the years, where I do think Bill Self and Kansas was maybe a terrible spot for Darren Peterson. I don't remember off the top of my head where else he could have gone to, but I don't know. Like, obviously Peterson didn't do himself any favors. Not like it was his fault, but with the cramping and the taking himself out of games. And it felt like we finally had like the momentum of Darren Peterson with the first half against BYU. Doesn't play in the second half. He like takes himself out of the Tech game, has to come back in, saves them. I mean, people will point to his like assist to turnover ratio. It's, I don't know. It's like maybe worse than watching Ace Bailey at Rutgers last year, where Ace Bailey had a comically low assist like ratio and assist numbers, and it's because his teammates also weren't very good. Now Ace Bailey also had extreme tunnel vision at times, but Darren Peterson makes nice reads, and his teammates just could not hit a three. They could not hit a cutting layup whatsoever. Like, no disrespect to those guys, and they beat Arizona this year without Darren Peterson, but it was tough to really watch Peterson as a playmaker, more so his teammates at times. I think Peterson's a good defender. As long as he's like, I don't know. If what I just watched of Darren Peterson this year was 90% Peterson, I do think 100% Darren Peterson is still my top guy in this draft. It's still a debate between like all three of them. I see the flaws in them. I see this like the pros in them. I'm still Boozer 2, Devanza 3, but it's the strongest number 3 I've ever had to like put a grade on. It's ridiculous. I'm glad you brought up the Kansas thing before I talk about them. Thank goodness the Indiana Pacers won a basketball game yesterday. I appreciate that. Big shout out, because my best friend is a Wizards fan. They're now tied. They do a weird thing with the lottery where they like combine their odds and then split them, but then now they have to like flip a coin if they end up with the best record, because obviously it's not just odds difference. 1 is a bigger deal than 2, because if you get jumped, you only slide down to 2 instead of 3, and it's a whole thing. But regardless,
we're going to see some pretty crazy tank offs. I think the Nets and Wizards still play each other, and like they might genuinely try to score on their own basket. The Nets played the Kings the other day, and thank goodness they lost the basketball game to give them, I think, a 2-game buffer. The reason I bring all this up is because me and my friend are really rooting for us to have the 1 and 2 odds in the lottery, but that's going to be a difficult kind of needle to thread because we need the Pacers to lose again, and the Nets, one of them is going to win the games they play each other, but the tanking conversation is going to be brutal the last little bit of the NBA season. The Kansas thing. So some people don't. Do you watch college games like with the audio on? Do you listen to the broadcast team, or do you just like, some people just are doing something else or they leave it on mute, or they just don't want to hear anybody else's thoughts?
Yeah, it's kind of like 50-50. I guess it's like a Monday night, like a big Monday game, I'm watching it with sound on. But if I'm like watching like Keaton Waugh tape while I'm like editing a video, it's sound off.
Right. Yeah. So like live broadcast. So I think it's Robbie Hummel who's on the call for the Kansas game. He basically could have said, I hate this Kansas offense, and it would have been less like damaging of a statement than what he was actually saying during the game. I think every 2 minutes he was like, Kansas just getting nothing out of their offense. Darren Peterson, tough twos at the end of the clock, every single possession. I think I could feel it a little bit when you were talking about maybe not an ideal situation. You and Robbie Hummel feel kind of the same way about the 25 years of Bill Self, second side, swing it, let's do nothing offense. Hey, really successful college basketball coach. There have been plenty of coaches that haven't necessarily had stellar offensive systems, and they've still been really good. But it was funny to feel the disdain through the TV, where it's like Robbie Hummel's like drawing on a napkin plays that they should be running, and instead it's just like, all right, 2 guys on the block. I'm going to swing, and we're going to come to the second side, and then we're going to run a pick and roll with 8 seconds left. So this is
him during the Baptist game or the St. John's game?
No, it's the St. John's game. It was the St. John's game because they couldn't score. They were okay in the beginning, and they couldn't score for like 8 straight minutes.
Yeah, because I was at the Virginia-Tennessee game, so I had that one up on my phone, and I was like looking back and forth, so I didn't watch that one with sound, but it makes sense. I mean, Kansas offense was, dude, it was so tough to watch this year. It really was. And honestly, like, I will say there's definitely flaws with Peterson, like himself too, where I feel like sometimes it's poor shot selection. Sometimes it's just disengagement. Like I feel like I talk about this in one of my videos that I'm going to bring out today, but it's like I don't know if there's a name for it or they're just huddling up. Like, you know how like college kids, like they'll huddle up after each dead ball whistle. And I felt like so many times this year I'm watching like the Kansas kids have to like wave over.
He's the last guy there every time.
Yeah, he's like the last guy. And like you could think about that. You might not. I mean, he might already have his like mind checked on in the NBA or something like that. But I would have liked for him to show a little bit more like, okay, like more motivation, more enthusiasm, like try to be the leader of the team, which maybe it's tough to do as a freshman when you have like Badunga and Council and Trey White and all these guys that have been there for a little bit until are on the roster. But I will say that, yeah, there's definitely some lapses like in Peterson where I don't know if he's like taking an offensive play off, but it's just like maybe, I don't know, like disengaged of what Bill Self was running. And like Bill Self hasn't had a top like pick in the draft against Josh Jackson was 4. You had Grady Dick and Agbaji at the end.
If you like Darren Peterson, don't utter Josh Jackson's name. That would be tough.
I mean, Wiggins and Embiid.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up Wiggins because I was thinking about him when you were talking. It was like I think generally speaking, it seems like people really like Andrew Wiggins. Seems like he's a good dude, but I think maybe there's a little bit of a comparison there personality-wise between him and Peterson, where it's like, I'm good at basketball. That should be good enough. Like, I'm not going to be like a super vocal kind of like, leader kind of guy. So I definitely find that interesting. I would still go AJ1. I don't know. I would have Peterson too, but I think situationally, like if the Pacers get the second pick, like maybe they go Peter. I don't know. I'm really close. It's like I would go AJ1, and then I think you could coin flip Peterson and Boozer. I don't think it's crazy for Darren Peterson to go third in this draft. I wouldn't go any crazier than that. But I thought AJ's game against Texas was really interesting because it was a little bit like I think I'm a little older than you, so I might be pulling something a little bit too far back. But it's a little like there was some Dwight Howard Orlando Magic series. I think they played the Hawks or something where he would score 50 and they would lose by 15 because they would just be like, you know what, we're not going to do. We're not going to let anybody else shoot threes. If you want to try and kill us with paper cuts and score 2 points every time down the floor, that's fine. You can score your 50. We're going to win by 15. And that's kind of what Texas did. They were like, hey, if you want to take contested twos the entire game and you're going to get 40, that's fine. We're going to win the basketball game anyway because you're not a good enough playmaker. You're not good enough at reading and creating offense for everyone else. And frankly, the rest of the team isn't that good. But I thought it was interesting because obviously he had a great game scoring wise while also simultaneously showing some pretty significant flaws in his game that he's going to have to work on to be like a fully developed playmaker NBA guy, because it's just going to be tough to build your offense around a guy that might just shoot contested twos out of the mid post unless he's getting all the way to the rim. If he's not putting pressure on a defense in a playmaking way as well.
Yeah, like there's like obviously if a team is picking at 3 and he's there, you're going to take him. But you wonder like where is the fit with him and Cooper Flagg, right? Like two guys that like to operate at the same area. You're going to take both of them. You're going to be excited about both of them. But like I don't know. There's definitely some weird fits for all 3 of the prospects at the top, and I don't think I'm going to get a better understanding until the lottery, which makes sense going forward. I do believe that Peterson fits the most on most of the like you can tell me Peterson fits. Yeah, Peterson fits perfectly next to Halliburton. He fits well next to Trae Young. He could be what Brooklyn could use as a 1 or a 2. Sacramento can use everybody. He could fit between Keontae George and Lauri Markkanen. He could fit next to Kyrie Irving and with Cooper Flagg. He could be the guy next to John Morant, post John Morant. He could fit next to Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson, right? You can go on. I think Peterson fits on every single one of these teams picking in the top 10. Totally. AJ, you're going to take him. You're going to get excited about him, but you do wonder where he fits the best at the end of the day. Like, what is his fit in Utah when it's Ace Bailey, it's Lauri Markkanen, it's Jaren Jackson Jr.? Like, how are we going to get him his shots, and how are we going to fully develop him?
If he went to the Jazz, that'd be hilarious.
Right. Like he's going down the road here, and like even like Cam Boozer too. It's like, is Cam Boozer? Say the Jazz get Cam Boozer, like he's not starting for you right away unless you're just rolling out Cam Boozer at the 2 or Markkanen at the 2, which I mean, it might be possible the way Ace Bailey's playing. You're not going to start him. Like, does Cam Boozer start over Anthony Davis, Alex Sarr? I think maybe they cut Anthony Davis if they should take Cam.
That would be crazy. Yeah, I mean, and like Indiana's another thing where like, how does he fit in with that situation?
Like, can he or Siakam guard threes?
Right,
exactly. It's a little tough. Like, there's definitely questionable fits. It's still like a positionless league, and you take these guys no matter what. I just think Peterson makes more sense for most of the teams there in the top 10.
Yeah, and you mentioned Dallas there for a second because you're talking about AJ and Cooper Flagg potentially fitting together. My dream scenario is that Dallas gets like the 5th or 6th pick, whatever allows them to get Darius Acuff, and I just want him and Kyrie to just like be in the gym for every workout for the next like 2 years, and because everybody has their like, oh, he looks like this guy. I think it was you that tweeted the other day. It was like a little bit of like Stephon Marbury, a little bit of Allen Iverson. I think he looks like Kyrie. That's who I think he looks like. And you could argue that in the modern version of the NBA, unless you're counting Steph as a small guard, which I don't, he's like 6'3", 6'4", Kyrie's like the most successful like 6'1", 6'2" guard we've had in the NBA over the last 10 years. And that's obviously the issue with Darius Acuff. It's like, if he's 6'5", I said this the other day, if Darius Acuff's 6'5", I'm taking him over Darren Peterson, and I'm not really blinking about it. It's just the size and the lack of defense. And I think him going to like learn how to play basketball with Kyrie Irving camp would be a 10 out of 10 outcome for his start of his career.
Totally. I mean, that would be one of my favorite fits because you're trying to also have like a good defensive infrastructure around him. And I don't think like Darius Acuff is like a bad defender. I don't think he's like going to be the worst defender in the world because of his size or his limitations there. It's more of just like an engagement factor. And hey, you get him under Jason Kidd, like you get him in a locker room full of veterans. Like, I think he's going to be motivated on that end of the floor. And I don't think he's going to be a complete liability when he actually looks engaged. I don't know if it's a Cal thing. I don't know if it's just his mindset right now where it's like, I'm the guy offensively. I'm the engine of this offense.
I've got like 4 6'10" dudes behind me. It'll be okay.
Yeah, like I'm taking some plays off. Like I'm not looking that engaged off the ball.
Yeah.
And it's not going to cut it in the NBA. I think you can cut it here in college basketball. But people know about his defensive issues, and we'll see how much that really drops him. I still don't think – I mean, I could be wrong, but I still think it's A.J. Peterson, Boozer, some way, shape, or form, top 3. I think there's a very good chance Caleb's going 4. Maybe a team talks themselves into Caleb or Peterson or something like that based on fit. And then I think it's like Flemings, Wagler, Darius Acuff, Mikal Brown, some way, shape, or form into the next 4.
What is your, like, if you could pick a team to end up with the, I'm going to screw up his last name, the guy from Michigan,
Lendenberg.
If you could pick one team to end up with him, who would you like that?
Because
he's very interesting as like an immediate impact guy.
He's going to be 24 years old in September. He doesn't have to go to a team that like their window's closing, right? Like Golden State could make sense. They need somebody, like they need front court help. They trade away Kuminga. Who knows, like Jimmy's health and Kristaps's contract situation next year. I think Golden State makes sense.
What's his range? What's his like draft range? Like where would he probably end up at?
Okay, so I'm looking at just like the Tankathon board right now. I'm not seeing a spot for him in the top 10. I could see him at Golden State. I could see Portland. I mean, after they took Hansen Yang last year, they could do anything. I like Charlotte at 13 if they don't love his center there, because like they could, like, Grant Williams has not been great this year. He's not been good this year, and he's recovering from this ACL tear, but was always an undersized 4. You give Vandenberg a team that wants to be a top 6 seed next year. Like, you're getting maybe his best 4 years of his career on this rookie contract, which is not normal, and that might be a good thing for a team like Charlotte. You're already trying to develop Tijon Salon. Why try to do something else there? Miami, I mean, like, they get these guys, and like,
no, I hate it.
yeah,
I'm good.
Like,
pass.
I don't know. Because he can kind of shoot threes, and he's like very physical down low, and he's a good rebounder.
My team is it's not going to happen. They don't pick high enough. I presume that I can pick high enough. I want him to go to the Lakers. I think that would be super interesting.
Lakers would be fun. Yep. I don't think I think Detroit would snag him. I think San Antonio may even think about it. Charlotte's got 2 picks before then. Like, I don't think OKC would take Vandenberg. I don't think Memphis would take him like at 16 with Orlando's pick. I mean, Philadelphia, if they think he could play next to Embiid next year. But that doesn't feel like a Morey guy.
That Michigan team is just so crazy that he's like the 3rd biggest guy out there. Their team is just completely absurd in terms of size. Like, that's, I think, been one of the interesting kind of themes the last couple of years in college basketball is like these teams are just gigantic. They're running like 4 different, 6'10" guys out there in the front court.
It's insane. Their size is ridiculous out there, and that's why people think they can win it all. And that's why they've been like the number 2 or 3 team all year.
Like,
so
it's such a cheat code too in terms of like they're just able to guard. It looks so easy for them to be able to guard. It's a little bit anecdotal, but then we'll wrap up. There was in high school, I wore the jersey in high school. I didn't actually play. I'm 6'4", and I was on the team, but I was not very good because I didn't play like organized basketball a lot growing up. Anyway, we played some team. I don't even remember the name, and they ran a zone, and they had like their smallest guy was 6'5". By the way, I was the tallest guy on our high school team. I was the tallest guy on our high school team.
You were the tallest guy on your high school team?
I was 6 foot. Yeah, there was a year, my junior year, the tallest guy that actually played was like 6'2". Like North Carolina high school basketball is wild. Anyway, and they ran a 1-3-1 zone with 6'5", 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", and 6'10". We didn't score in the first quarter. 8-minute quarter. Didn't score. Shot 2 free throws. It shot 2 free throws at the end of the quarter and missed them both. And it didn't score. Yeah, so that's what I kind of get reminded of when I watch Michigan. I'm like, how the hell are you supposed to score on this team? And they did because the St. Louis made some threes. But anyway, anecdotal, but still.
Yeah. Why aren't you might have said this before. Why aren't you a Hornets fan?
So the Hornets were a little bit in and out of basketball at the time I got into basketball. I was born in 1995. And when I started getting into basketball when I was like 5 or 6 years old, they were interesting and cool. They were cool if I had born 5 years earlier, they would have been really cool. The real answer is I didn't really get into the NBA. I was always into college basketball. NC State's been my team my entire life. When I started to get into the NBA, I played a video game on the Nintendo GameCube called NBA Courtside. And you know how it like loads up like the demo or whatever, and you play the 2 teams that played in the finals the year before? I think it was NBA Courtside 2002, I think. And the person I was playing with was a Spurs fan, so they picked the Spurs. And then I picked the New Jersey Nets. And that's it. That's the only reason. They happened to be in the finals that year, which I guess that technically means if... I can't remember. I know that they beat Boston to play the Lakers, but the Spurs year, I can't remember who they beat. Maybe Philly? Regardless, whatever the Eastern Conference representative was for the 2001 or 2002, whatever the prior year was for the video game, I know it was the year they played the Spurs. Whatever year that was, whatever the Eastern Conference representative was, I was just destined to be a fan of that NBA team. So.
It's crazy how like a kid works like trying to find their favorite team. Like I became a Mets fan because Matt started with an M and so did the Mets. Because the Bobcats history is like because like the expansion came in like what was it like 04?
They were in the 2004 draft. Yeah, so they were a team before, and then they were a team. They were the Charlotte Hornets for a little bit, and then I might be getting my timeline screwed up, but I believe they got moved to New Orleans, and then the New Orleans Hornets, and then they changed their name, and then but they expanded to get to 30 teams, which was the Bobcats, and they went back to Charlotte, but they didn't take the Hornets name until later when the Pelicans gave it up to become the Pelicans. So it's a little bit weird about whose franchise history is whose, which I think is going to be a conversation we're going to get into if we get a Seattle team added, because OKC claims Seattle's franchise history, which is like the most disrespectful thing we have in the NBA, frankly. So that's the only reason I'm not a Hornets fan, because you're right. Everything else is North Carolina. People get very confused. Like there's a team there. It's a little bit like most people in North Carolina that I know, unless they're like a New York baseball fan, they're Braves fans, because it's like they're down there. We're just going to be a fan of them. It's a little bit like that, where it was just happenstance, and I wasn't into / the team wasn't around the Hornets at the time.
Do you have a soft spot for the Hornets? Or you don't really care for them?
I like when they're good. Like I liked the Kemba teams, but it's a little bit like I live in like the Orlando-ish area. It's a little bit like I root for the Magic because I want games to be good, to go to the games and go to playoff games. Whereas when I lived in I didn't live in Charlotte, but when I lived in North Carolina, it's like, oh, it'd be really cool if they were good enough to actually have the games matter. But big shout out to the Magic for losing to the Pacers. I really, really appreciate that. I'm not even kidding.
Beats the Pacers 17 times in a row.
I'm not even kidding. I thought there was like a 2% chance the Pacers, it was 128, 126. They had the ball with like 15 seconds left, or maybe 30 seconds left. And I thought there was like a 2% chance the Pacers were going to inbound the ball and score on their own basket. I'm not even kidding. Because if they don't win, they get the number 1 pick in the draft. And now they've introduced the possibility of not getting them 1 pick. And it's only because they beat the Orlando Magic. He would have ran on the floor, WWE style. They would have played his music and he would have ran on the floor and like pile drived Rick Carlisle to the crowd.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting take off throughout the final we're almost.
If you look at the schedule, it is tanky schedule here the rest of the way.
Yeah. You know what? I had a half-baked thought on how we can maybe make it a little bit better in terms of tanking. So you've heard so many like lottery ideas, draft pick ideas. Do you think what we need more is more competitiveness to make the playoffs? And I think you can be on the side of the NBA that the 8 best teams in the conference make the playoffs, and that's what it should be. What if we made it like the NFL or the MLB, and you incentivize divisions again? And what if you had like the top 2 teams from each division make the playoffs, and then you had 2 wild cards, right? The 2 best non-division or winners or top 2 guys end up making it as well. So you can have 4 teams at most from one division, where now we have teams that are, okay, like it's late in the year, but you're only like 4 or 3 games back of like the second spot in your division, but you would have been like 6 spots back. I don't know. You would have to eliminate the play-in tournament. I think you have to just incentivize more teams to make the playoffs, or at least want to make the playoffs. And maybe you have to create some imbalance where people get mad about like the Panthers for making the playoffs going 8-9 when a team will.
Every time they've done that, by the way, they've won a game, except I guess they lost to the Rams this year, but they were close.
No, yeah,
they were 7-8-1 one year. They were 3-8-1 and won the last 4 games of the year and won the division, and then they ended up winning a game like that. I feel like that happens all the time.
They went 7-9 and won the division, and then you had beast mode. So like I don't know. I mean, when you're looking at like divisions right now, like the Knicks and Celtics would lock it up, the Pistons and Cavs would lock it up, but the Southeast would get interesting. Now the Southeast would be competing with like Toronto and Philly on who would get the final 2 spots. Yeah. I don't know.
I also just have no idea. I'll be honest. I have a general idea of who's in what division. I could not tell you the name of if you gave me $1 million, I couldn't tell you the name of the 6 NBA divisions. I have no idea. I know they're generally like geographically, like there's a Northeast and a Central and an Atlantic and everything. But I also think the NFL comparison is hard because making the playoffs in the NFL is so prestigious, because prior to a couple of years ago, it was 12 of the 32 teams made it. And then they added a 7th team in each conference. And also just I personally feel like the way that the one and done aspect and the way the football is set up is like you have an actual chance of like going on a run in the NFL as a lower seed, whereas in the NBA, if you're an 8th seed, and I guess maybe in this proposal, you'd be a 4 seed. If you win the division, you can't be lower than that. And maybe you actually have a chance in the series. I think that's the hard part about the comparison is we're going to do best of 7s. Making it isn't as prestigious, A, because a bunch of teams make it, and B, your likelihood of actually advancing is much lower, whereas we just saw the Panthers like almost beat a Rams team that very well could have, gone to.
Like if it was a one and done like playoffs, you could maybe make it work. And then also you'd have
that would be crazy. Could you imagine? I mean, that's what makes March Madness great. You imagine a one and done like the Hornets. Or, they've cooled off a little bit, but let's just say they have a really great end of the year, and it's like you got to go to Detroit for one game. Like they have a non-0% chance of winning that game. Certainly,
I wouldn't hate. Maybe they got to bump it down to like best of 3 or something like that.
It's the same, but they obviously they want all the TV and the
TV money, so and then
it's hard to
you'd have to eliminate the
backwards.
lottery. You'd have to eliminate the lottery because it seems like why would I make the playoffs when I could be the Dallas Mavericks possibly and get the.
I am all for eliminating the play-in though. I'm totally fine eliminating the play-in or implementing some kind of wild card system where it's just now we're getting into quarter baked ideas. Like, do you play in any fantasy leagues that have like what's the word for it? There's like a lucky winner or something where it's like someone that's not in the top whatever gets to advance because they have the most points or whatever. Yeah, I wonder if there's like a structure where no matter what, at some point in the year you have a chance to like maybe put yourself. Imagine we had like a instead of the play-in tournament, you had like a lottery, like for the playoffs, like top 6 is locked in, and then everybody else, you just get ping pong balls, and your ping pong chances increase the more wins you have. And it's like, hey, by the way, Indiana Pacers, you are now playing in the first round against Detroit because your ping pong balls came up. The reverse lottery. Let's just do that, dude. The reverse lottery. Bang.
I mean, it's not. I don't know.
You draw for the 4 playoff spots, and then you seed it by losses. There you go.
Yeah, it'll be fun. All right, so that'll wrap it up for us. We hope you guys did enjoy. We talked a lot of college basketball today. I guess I'm tanking as well, and yeah, we'll definitely be talking to you guys again soon. Hope you did enjoy. Let us know maybe who you think you're going to win, or who you think's going to win March Madness in the YouTube comments as well, and we'll catch you on the next one.
See you.
Peace.